Hey everybody, Bungsy here with another Ultralight review on Ultralight backpacking. I have a pack explosion for you guys today. Pardon the voice, I'm getting over COVID, all is good though. I promised my kiddo before I jumped in that I'd throw him a shout out to his amazing YouTube channel. It's called Micah's Party. If you or the kiddos in your life are into gaming, hysterical original puppet shows, or 3D printing, you've got to check out my entertaining little 10-year-old's eclectic channel of all things good in this world. I'll throw a link in my video description down below. Give him a follow, it will make his day. I spent a stretch this summer backpacking in the Yellowstone Backcountry, tightrope walking Montana and Wyoming along the Yellowstone River. I recently published a little series of trip videos on this little adventure. Please check them out if you haven't already. There's some pretty scenery, little and big critters, and lots of gear shots. So quickly, what were the packing parameters for this trip? We packed for 8 days with no resupplies, so that's more food to carry than usual. Also, while I often bring an ultralight Tenkara fishing setup with me for some some spot fishing, this trip had a much bigger dose of fishing, so you'll actually see my fully blown out ultralight fly fishing setup. So not just tenkara, but fly fishing as well. I know most of you aren't here for fishing, so I promise to keep that section uber short. One more wrinkle. Yellowstone is having a near record drought. As a result, they had installed what are called hoot owl fishing restrictions, which means you have to stop by 2 p.m. As a result, we would be spending a good amount of time just chilling in our various camps. That was a packing consideration as well. The miles weren't crazy, so I sucked it up and carried in items that would make our downtime memorable. As for the climate, we planned for warm temps, albeit not Texas warm, with the chance of colder nights and the likelihood of rain showers and storms, and mosquitoes. It varies by season, but they can be fierce at times. Let's jump in. First up, I guess, is the pack itself. Because of the extended trip length, I moved from my go-to Hyperlight 2400 Wind Rider to my Hyperlight 3400 Junction. Side pocket material aside, it's the same pack, but with an extended collar for the extra food. When rolled down, it's indistinguishable from the smaller volume 2400 size. The added volume is all in the collar, which I love. Great design. I have a link in the video description below to my detailed review on the Hyperlight 2400 Wind Rider from back in the day in case you're interested. On that note, I've loaded the video description with review links and product links on most everything I'll show you today, so check it out. Moving on, let's unpack the front pocket first. First up is my rain gear. What you're looking at here is an MLD rain mitt. Do I need rain mitts this time of year? Not at all, but this is how I've always stored my rain gear. I'm a creature of habit. Inside the mitt is the other mitt, a rain jacket, a rain skirt, and my bug head net. It's just an easy way of keeping these infrequently used items organized and accessible without having to open my pack, but at the same time, they stay out of the way. For my rain jacket, I have a Montbell Versalite. This is the Japanese version, which is lighter than the one sold stateside because it doesn't have pit zips. You won't find this, at least the last time I checked, on the North American Montbell website. But you can purchase this from their English language Japanese site. They don't mind at all, and the shipping isn't prohibitive either. I'm not a fan of rain pants, hence the rain skirt. This rain skirt is made by Enlightened Equipment. It also functions as a quick and easy dry ground covering for breaks or whatnot. The head net is by Mountain Laurel Designs, again, as are the mitts. Next up is my food soaking jar. Inside, I keep my folding spoon by Snow Peak. It's a long handle spoon. Unfortunately, they don't make this spoon anymore. You can still find a fork version of it here and there. Don't pay scalper prices though. I saw one on clearance recently for under $20 and I've seen some for sale for $80. Also in there is half a pot scraper. I'm switching up my food cooking strategy. More on that down the road. I'm excited about it. I'm also bringing a small speaker on this specific trip. I know speakers are outdoor evil. It's not something I would ever carry on a typical trail. It's just that we are in a very secluded area of the park where we are the only ones allowed to be there due to the very limited and strict permitting system. There are no other backpackers to disturb. The only ones we might disturb are the bears, which is the other reason I like having a speaker in camp. It lets them know we're there. It's the SRS XB01 model by Sony. It weighs only 5.5 ounces, is weatherproof, and lasts for 6 hours. And it's pretty cheap at $30. It also sounds decent for what it is. I also keep my water reservoir and filter here. For this trip, I used a Sawyer Squeeze. All hail the Sawyer Squeeze, but I gave the Canuck 3-liter Vecto another try. I've had one Canuck spring a leak on me, in fact, straight out of the box, but I wanted to give it another try, and it performed great. I find 3 liters is the magical size for reservoirs, as it's enough for camp. It covers enough for dinner, for breakfast, for drinks, and then some. I wish all the vendors had 3-liter options. It saves you the annoying chore of having to go back and forth from your water source 2 or 3 times. One simple hack, be sure to add a little paracord to the handle so that you can create a gravity hang system for in camp. You'll also find my Dyneema tent stake bag in here. I'm not sure on the brand, it's old. In here I have an assortment of stakes. For this trip I used the Z-Packs house brand stakes, namely 2 of their V-stakes. One didn't survive, hence the lonely V-stake. 4 of their peg stakes, and then 2 shepherd hooks. I also keep my Deuce of Spades trowel in my tent stakes bag. This storage strategy keeps the trowel from doing unnecessary damage to the pack material or netting, or from making a mess. The only catch is that most tent stake bags don't fit trowels. All you Dyneema cottage companies, I strongly suggest you recut your tent stake bags to accommodate the Deuce. Everyone will buy one. You're welcome. I also keep my fishing gear bag in here as well. Again, I know most of you aren't here for fish talk, so I'm going to keep it really brief. I keep all my fishing gear as well as my fly reel in here. Here are my flies, fishing forceps on a zinger, extra lines, and other fishing odds and ends. When it's time to fish, I wear my Hyperlight pack, but leave all my backpacking gear in my tent. I then move the fishing pouch and its contents to the pack side and hip pockets. This way I don't need to carry any kind of dedicated fishing sling or whatnot on the trip. Moving on. In my one side pocket is the UL rod case, which contains a full-size fly rod, plus a tenkara rod for fishing small creeks. By the way, if enough of you are interested, I can do a full breakdown, maybe even a series on ultralight backpacking fishing gear. Let me know in the comments. Next to the rod case is what I call my smelly pouch. I know, ridiculous name. Basically, it helps me keep all my scented stuff together, food and scented products, as well as getting me in and out of camp much easier and quicker than when my food, wrappers, and scented items all are hiding in every nook and cranny of my pack. I actually have a whole video from back in the day on this packing strategy, which I highly recommend watching. Again, there are a bunch of relevant links included, including one about this strategy in the video description below. The sack is by Z-Packs. It's their small plus size stuff sack, as they call it. In here, you'll find powdered soap, hand sanitizer, bug spray, my toothbrush and toothpaste tabs, Pepsi because it smells like candy, sunscreen, lip balm, some first aid salve, which is good for chafing, mosquito bites, and other things. I also have some unscented deodorant cream for if and when I get a chance to bathe. I also have my TP and a wipe, a baggie with my Ultralight noon tabs. These go in there. And last but not least, food for the day. Everything but dinner. Moving on. In my left side pocket, always my left, I keep a 1-liter Smart water bottle plus a small 900 ml Evernew bladder, which is exclusively for electrolytes and other flavored drink mixes. I recommend a soft bladder for electrolytes because when emptied, it's much easier to fit this in your bare hang bag at night than a hard-sided bottle. You really shouldn't be keeping your sweet-smelling electrolyte bottle with you in your tent at night. Moving on to the hip belts. In the one hip belt, I keep all the small gear items I might need at some point during the day. It's my trail junk drawer, I guess you could say. There's my half buff, which I use for all sorts of things. There's my Nightcore NU20 headlamp, small pocket knife, a mini Bic lighter, my water bladder coupler for when I just want to let gravity do its thing or I need to backflush my filter. I also keep a pen in here, plus a thermometer. I have a recent review on this thermometer linked below. I also make the case in that video for why to pack a trail thermometer to begin with. I also keep an extra GoPro battery handy. I carry a few of these, which I keep elsewhere, as well as some headphones, and last but not least, my asthma spray. In the other hip pocket, I have nothing. I don't need it. Again, I keep all my snacks in the smelly pouch. It's just an easier, safer practice at the end of the day to have all your smelly stuff, including empty wrappers, in one place. Besides, these hip belt pouches are too small for a full day's worth of food. Also add my bear spray in its holster here. It's super handy and it's easy to remove and place in my pocket when milling around without my pack. As for the shoulder straps, I'm not big on shoulder pouches either. Some people love pockets, more power to you, not me. Besides keeping things simple, having large items hanging off my chest just make me feel a little claustrophobic. Weird maybe, I know. I do though keep my GoPro here mounted on a GoPro swivel clip. I have more to say on the clips set up in a separate video down the road. And of course, there's my Garmin InReach Mini on a small carabiner. I think this carabiner is from Z-Packs. So let's now open this sucker up. Up top, I have my food bag. I use either a Hilltop Designs or Z-Packs Dyneema food bag these days. I typically have a lock sack liner inside, but I think I'm gonna switch that out to a Nylofume bag. They're simpler and easier to close and much, much cheaper. Inside the food bag, I also typically have my pot and stove if there's room for it. As I mentioned, I'm trying a new cooking setup, so more on my evolving cooking setup down the road a bit. I'm really excited about it. On this trip, we have to use gas canisters, so I can't go with my favorite Esbit solid fuel setup. So this time around, I'm using my Toaks 550 ml pot. It's the smallest size pot that still is big enough to boil all the water I need in one go. As for the stove, it's the BRS 3000T. There's no such thing yet as the perfect stove. Well, you're not going to find a smaller one, a lighter gas stove than this BRS, not to mention cheaper. You do give up fuel efficiency and stability. In the pot, besides the fuel can, you'll also find a windshield and a tiny rag, which I only use for drying the pot. Windshields are not really intended for gas stoves. It's kind of dangerous as it risks redirecting the heat down towards the can. That can end badly. I only use the windshield when it's super windy and I just kind of hold it midair. It's too short anyways, and again, dangerous to just leave it on the ground. The other reason I carry this particular windshield is that I can use it as part of a wood-burning stove setup in a pinch, or in that down the road. Inside the food bag, there are also a couple odds and ends. There's my hang kit, which is made by Anti-Gravity Gear. I also have a review on this. It's one of the smartest designed pieces of gear. I also packed an extra bladder for some bourbon. I wouldn't carry booze on a typical trip, but this trip isn't typical, as I mentioned, lots of downtime. There's also a 1.6 ounce collapsible sink for washing up. Everyone talks about leaving no trace, but I see too many people washing up in the water. A sink makes transporting water away from the water source super easy. An alternative to this is a gallon Ziploc, FYI, but they kind of suck. Well, we'll also be cooking fish when allowed, so I'm bringing this collapsible bowl thingy, which weighs 1.44 ounces. I can prep fish on this like a cutting board, plus eat out of it. I wouldn't need this otherwise if we weren't catching and cooking fish. Next out of my pack is my chair, a Helinox Zero chair, in a custom Hilltop Packs bag. Chairs and bag included, by the way. This weighs 17.7 ounces, which probably includes a little dirt. On a typical trip, I wouldn't bother with a chair. There's just not enough downtime to justify the weight penalty. And then comes my tent, which is the Z-Packs Ultraplex. I never carry a tent stuff sack. I have a whole video on this stuff sackless tent packing strategy linked to in the below video description as well, in case you missed it. Stuff sacks are pure evil, and this has nothing to do with weight, so check it out. Next up is my Ditty bag. Every loose end is in there. This DCF pouch was purchased from Lightsmith. It's a good size and well priced. I could spend half the day walking you through this bag, but we'll leave that for its own video maybe. Here's just the broad strokes. Inside you'll find an envelope-sized lock sack in which I have my first aid kit, meds, personal care items, and repair kits. In the outer bag, I also have my extra GoPro batteries, my 10,000 Nitecore battery bank, charging cables and adapters, a small notebook, and earplugs. Once you get past that, you hit my dry sack, which is just a Nylofume bag. This is the only stuff sack or dry bag I use. I'm not a fan of dry bags and stuff sacks. Let's see what comes out. On this trip, I have more layers than I would usually bring. I had an extra long sleeve t-shirt, which you'll see here. Fishing was scheduled for pretty much every day. My hiking shirt would likely end up covered at some point with fish slime and blood, not to gross you out. Not a great idea sleeping in that in bear country, hence the extra long sleeve t-shirt. The extra t-shirt is a Patagonia long sleeve Capilene tee that weighs less than 4 ounces in a large. Even in the summer, I go with long sleeves for sun and bug protection. Simplicity. Also wanted to try out my new Alpha hoodie by Vado. Maybe saying that wrong. More on this item down the road, but I love it. It weighs only 3.95 ounces, which is insane. It's overkill for this time of year, but I also brought my relatively new and light equipment Torrid synthetic pullover. So far, so good as well. Scratch that. I love it. More on this pullover to come as well. As for my sleeping bottoms, I have a pair of Patagonia thermal weight long underwear bottoms. I've also packed a pair of shorts. This company is no longer around, but they're made by Luke's Ultralight. They weigh only 1.48 ounces. Finishing up my extra clothes is a pair of possum down gloves. I really don't need them either this time of year, but I just leave them in my kit for simplicity. Also have an extra pair of Injinji toe socks, plus my waterproof sealskin socks, which I don't go anywhere without. I've included a link below to a video from back in the day on the use case for these. They have several benefits. I highly recommend the video and the socks. Next up is my pillow, which is a size large. It's made by Sea to Summit, who has been messing with their design over the last couple of years. So the current version isn't quite as thick or light. Super annoying. This one is several years old. Then there's my quilt. I'm a loyal fan of Katabatic Gear's quilts. Warmest for the weight, bar none. Best baffled build of any quilt. I have a review on this in the library as well. On this trip, I brought the 30-degree Palisade. I always bring their pad attachment cords, but I don't remember the last time I actually used them. They're helpful when you're really trying to eke out a few more degrees of warmth. Needed or not on any given trip, again, I just leave them at the bottom of my liner for simplicity. As for my sleeping pad, which goes in here as well, it's on stuff sack, of course, I think the Thermarest Neo Air is the perfect balance of weight, warmth, and durability. I have a size regular, and that would be the bottom. That's everything. I hope you enjoyed that. Coming up, I'll also have a What's on My Back video covering my worn items for this particular trip, so check back soon. Well, that's all the time I need. Let's make the dismount ultralight as well, so bye for now.